Hello everyone, I am Tacet and welcome to another episode of our Gems of War free-to-play Let's Play. Today we're going to be doing several things, the first of which will be to unlock every single kingdom. Kingdoms in Gems of War end up giving you access to additional quest lines and places that you can farm specific trait stones. One other noteworthy thing about every single kingdom that you end up unlocking is that you end up getting access to an additional banners. Banners can be set to teams to give them certain mana advantages. If you go over to troops, click on any of your teams, and then go over to bonuses, you can switch to any of the bonuses that you have accumulated from any kingdom, like that one that we just got from the Glacial Peaks. We end up getting a +2 blue, +1 purple, and -1 red, meaning whenever we take a red mana, we get -1, whenever we take a purple, we get a +1, and whenever we take a blue, we get a +2. A good majority of banners, though, are on a +1/+1, where they give 1 mana to one color and 1 mana to another, and there are also banners that give +2 simply to a single color without needing to have a -1 and getting additional +1. It just gives +2 to a single one. So those are all the banners, and we will have all of them by time we unlock all of them. There's every single combination of +1/+1. There's also every single combination of +2, though the +2, +1, -1 banners are quite variant as far as what they cover, and very few combinations are currently covered within the game. So let's just get every single kingdom. They cost 4,000 each. They are definitely one of the first priorities that you should really be doing. You not only get a little bit of extra gold and stuff from being able to unlock these, but as I mentioned, it unlocks more quest lines, which you can get epics for at the end of each one. It also can unlock some hero classes, like for example, Sword's Edge unlocks the Knight class, and there are several other quest lines that end up unlocking a specific class. And you also get the advantage of just being able to do the challenges and explore there, which could give you more souls, or for the explore, once you've completed out the quest line, will give you access to whatever the specific kingdom's trade stones are. Like for example, if we go and click over to, let's say, Divinian Fields, and we go over to explore, we will have a better chance of gaining the rarer yellow-purple trait stones. Not to mention, every battle within this kingdom will be those yellow-purple trait stones. So let's just unlock all of them. This is really high priority as far as what you should be spending your gold on. Probably I would say within the first 2 weeks you should definitely target to have every single kingdom fully maxed out, possibly even quicker than that. It's not particularly too hard. I forget the exact cash amount off the top of my head. I believe it is somewhere around 80,000 gold, I want to say, to fully max, or to fully obtain every single kingdom. Don't max them yet, don't do that. That will be the next order of business though. So now that we have every single kingdom in the game, which should mark, yep, there we go, all 29 of the current kingdoms that exist in Gems of War. Another one's coming in about a month or so. But now that we have all of them, what should we spend our gold on? As that, of course, took out pretty much all that we currently have. The next order of business is to start getting every single kingdom to level 3. The reason for this is it will slightly increase our tribute chance as well as our gem mastery. As you can see, it goes up in price every single time, and from this point onwards, after level 3, it starts shooting up quite exponentially. You could possibly do level 4 all of them. Generally what I do is go level 3 first to every single kingdom, and then start working on getting all the magic and attack kingdoms to level 10. The reason why these are better to do first is simply because magic and attack are better value than having additional HP and armor, and it's just as easy to get one of the HP and attack kingdoms up as it is to get an HP or armor kingdom up, so it's better to do these. So get everything to level 3 next, which is our next order of business, and then level 10 them. The main ones that you'd want to prioritize first for level 10ing are Blighted Lands, Darkstone, Zolkari, Karkaroth, and Silverglade. How do I know this? If you just go into the kingdom and then click on kingdom and then see what is over here, it tells you what the stat is. You will need to know what the icon is, but it's pretty self-explanatory. That one's the magic. The one that looks like the little swords thing is the attack. The one that's a little heart is HP, and the one that looks like a shield is a armor. Like if we go click on another kingdom, like right over here in Magrim Woods, we can see that it is HP. So you can simply check that on those kingdoms. And just to mention it again, the ones you'd want to do is get everything to level 3 and then get to level 10 Silverglade, Blighted Lands, Darkstone, Karkaroth, and Zolkari, as those are the 5 magic kingdoms, and they will give you the best value. So let's go open a couple of our keys. We do have some gold keys and other various stuff. we get anything useful, we'll go mention it. Dryad actually is somewhat useful. Dryad is a pretty decent early game troop. It is used in Tyree farming. You can use, or map farming I should say, with a Tyree. If you have gotten a Tyree from the Zolkiri Kingdom, which will allow you to farm a lot of maps, like over 50 an hour when you, in early game, even with lesser builds, you can do upwards of 100 later on in the game. But essentially what you build is a Dryad, Goblin Shaman, Dryad, Tyree, and then you can just go to any of the Fortress Gate lead challenges in Broken Spire and farm up a bunch of maps, more so than you'll ever need. It's a great way to keep your level static without ever gaining any EXP, and of course keeping a low level early on in the game is decent, mainly because it makes PvP easier. It also makes Arena easier, but this troop in general is pretty decent. It does a lot of stuff for very cheap. It's one of those troops that when you keep it at a low level will be really effective for your team. It gives you life, that's static 5 life, gives you some heal based on its magic, it gives you a barrier onto that troop, and it creates 8 greens. It's quite a bit for the 10 mana cost. As far as everything else we got, oh, there is one other noteworthy one. I almost did not see that. We finally got a Valkyrie. One of the strongest troops in the game, surprisingly, even though she is a rare. She doesn't make that many. What she does is transform a selected mana color to blue. This synergizes with a lot of troops. Out of every single troop that has this kind of convert ability, she is tied at the lowest mana cost with only a 10 mana cost. She also accumulates souls every single time she casts. This is one of the most noteworthy things about her, because she will be able to accumulate a very, very large, substantial amount of souls very early on in the game prior to having the magic kingdoms. She isn't really that worth using, but like after we get all 5 of those kingdoms I mentioned earlier to level 10 as far as their leveling, that would give us 5 additional magic, and that alone, not even leveling our Valkyrie, would bring her up to 7 souls per cast. And this can definitely stack up over time if you're using her on a good majority of your teams. One other thing to note is she is the cheapest mana cost of any of the troops to have +1 to a different color. You can see she has Waterlink. Of course, she doesn't actually use the blue color, but one thing that comes in handy with this trait, if you were to eventually get it, is that she feeds mana into other color troops, but then has this +1 that feeds even more. There's one other converter that has this, which is Giant Spider, but Giant Spider has a 13 mana cost, not a 10. So that combination makes her quite useful and is one of the reasons why she is so overused and one of the better troops in the entire game despite being such a very low rarity. So it comes in handy. Everything else is pretty useless, except maybe if we happen to get a Christine X Silver Draken, it might be okay just to trade them up. But other than that, mainly just the Valkyrie and the Dryad are the only good pools there. So let's go see what we have from Marquise. Elven Bard, very situational, though could be useful. Gives an ally 2 magic and then half their mana as well as enchants them. Enchant gives 2 mana per turn. Very situationally is this useful. I personally don't really use it much. Paladin similarly could be useful. He does a lot of damage based on his armor. Every single armor he has, he does 1 damage for. He's similar to Rowain, which you end up getting from completing out the Forest of Florence Kingdom, which is a pretty decent early game damage option. It will require you to get a bunch of armor kingdoms, which is something I wouldn't really advise focusing on immediately. So generally you don't use these more towards mid-game, but they can do pretty high burst damage. The biggest issue with them though is if they get hit with physical damage and lose any armor, every single armor they lose is potential damage. And in the case of Paladin, every single damage he takes to his armor is essentially 1 less damage that he'll be doing to the enemy. So very high liability. He's a high risk, high reward kind of troop. Other than that, we did get a Soothsayer. Soothsayer is mainly noteworthy when he gets fully traded. He gives a pretty nice board control. He destroys a purple and then destroys an entire column around that of a entire column and entire row. He also gives all allies 1 magic whenever he does that, and he can do this with Empowered from the very first turn, and that combined with Stone Link allows him to spam this quite a bit. And it's definitely pretty useful. And after Crimson Bat got nerfed, it's also pretty nice to use 2 Soothsayers with a Herdmaster with a Crimson Bat, as you will still be able to get that cursed off in order to get the Crimson Bat's final traits working. But that's not till later on. Anyways, that's most of the keys. Actually, there is one thing we still need to do. The Glory keys and the shiny event key. Oh, and we have some gem keys. But we need that Dragon Soul. This is a Dragon's Claw event this week. Dragon's Claw is noteworthy because as Dragon Soul is arguably the strongest, or not even arguable. Hey, our second legend. Well, I was mentioning Crimson Bat earlier. Well, that just diverted what I was saying, but on what I was previously saying, Dragon Soul is one of the strongest possible early game troops that you can have. Probably the absolute strongest. It can hit 20 damage to all enemies, even at level 1. Speaking about really strong troops that are really good at level 1, we got a Tesla. Well, looks like we're going to need to show a Tesla at some point during this video. Tesla is very similar to a Crimson Bat. If any of you don't know what a Crimson Bat does, Crimson Bat does true damage to all enemies and then heals a little. What a Tesla does is it does split damage to all enemies. It's not full AoE, but basically it takes the armor of every single troop, including your enemy, does a boost ratio based on it, and then there's true damage to all enemies split between them. This is somewhat better than a Crimson Bat in most instances, because unlike a Crimson Bat where he basically does less damage overall as the enemy has less troops, Tesla will basically be able to maintain that damage even if they have less troops, mainly because her damage is split, so it focuses on whichever ones are alive. So since we got the Valkyrie, we could actually go use our new Valkyrie that we got with the Tesla and see if we have any other supporting troops. There's our Soothsayer, and I don't think anything else is really noteworthy. We got a Dolkefer, though he's pretty dead content, so not really worth using. He does summon a giant spider, but until we get that giant spider traded, he won't really be useful at all. But we got a Tesla, so that's a nice thing we got from there. Let's see if we get anything good from our 2 gem keys. Just 2 trait stones, perfectly fine with that. One of them we'd even have. And now here's the real keys. Can we get a Dragon Soul? It's not a Dragon Soul. That's not even Dragon's Claw. That's not a Dragon Soul. That is a useful arcane, though not a Dragon Soul. There's also not one. Nope. Well, at least we got Draconian Monk if we didn't already have it. And we didn't. Dragonian Monk is noteworthy. Actually, Trent is somewhat noteworthy too. Actually, a few of these are. Dragonian Rogue is generally a placement holder for an all-dragon team if you happen to not have better options. He's okay, definitely not one of the better dragons out there, but as a placeholder early on in the game, he has a really decent 3x boost ratio that boosts based on purple and can hit the last enemy. And since a lot of people in early game don't tend to put good backline tanks, you can easily just kill it out. Since, let's say, it hits like 5 purple with its gigantic X shape that it does of destruction to the board. Let's say it hits 5, that's 15 damage right there. And then you get the additional however much magic, so you can hit about a 20-ish normally whenever using the Dragonian Monk, so pretty decent in that regard. Trent is somewhat noteworthy, mainly because it can be a okay tank. It does gain stone skin if you eventually go for traits. Other than that, it gains a lot of armor and attack, and can be a good brown remover if you need a brown counter. But the most noteworthy thing about all of this is Dragonian Monk. Very, 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 very strong troop. He's one of the only few under dozen troops in the entire game that can barrier your entire team easily, and out of all the early game options, he is the absolute best for being able to do this. He destroys gems in X shape, and this can be targetable. Unlike the Dragonian Rogue, this can be targetable anywhere on the board, giving it a lot of board control. He's actually one of the hardest troops in the game really to aim, mainly because of how many possibilities he has with this, but after you use him a little bit, you kind of learn where on Earth to target his X shape. It's a little bit complicated, but definitely learnable. But then he barriers a random ally for every yellow gem destroyed. This is all he does, but that is very, very powerful just in itself. Not only are you gaining some mana generation and board control, you're also going to potentially be able to barrier your entire team for only 11 mana cost, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the cheapest barrier your entire team that you can possibly do in a single cast. So it has a lot of defensive potential. It is particularly good if you're going up against people that are, or challenges that are exponentially stronger than you. For example, once we finally hit dungeons, we will be using Dragonian Monk within those dungeons. It's mainly a toss-up between Dragonian Monk and Cockatrice, and since I believe we don't currently have Cockatrice, Dragonian Monk will be our option for protecting ourselves against really high burst damage that we can't protect against, because some of those stuff will probably be able to one-shot us in some situations. So there we go. And there's one other thing to go over. We have switched over into a different guild, one that is slightly better. I ended up doing this last weekend, didn't really mention it much prior to now, but we are getting slightly more rewards from this guild. One noteworthy thing, though, is that this guild is mainly focusing down gems, and now we have hit 555 gems, which means we can finally obtain our Death Knight armor. Death Knight armor, as far as obtaining it, normally takes anywhere from about 2 weeks to, I would say, a month of playing Gems of War, and that's of course completely free to play. You could probably get it way quicker than that if you weren't to play it free to play. But for any free to play players, it is quite mandatory basically to get these 2 armors. If you're someone who spends $50 for the Death Knight armor, you never need to buy these 2 armors unless you visually want them. But for any free to play players out there, it is definitely really high priority to have both of these. Dragon armor has a gold focus, Celestial armor has the soul focus, and if you're playing without paying a single cent on the game and not getting Death Knight armor, these are the 2 best armors you can possibly get in the game, and the earlier you can get them, the better, because they will speed up everything that you do. So as you can see right now, what we're currently using is the Assassin armor, which is just a cheap 50 gem armor that you can easily get, possibly even in your first day of playing, maybe first week definitely for sure, maybe even a few fierce days. But that just gives a little bit of extra souls. I was just doing this so we could get a little bit more from Arena, since it's really important to get those initial souls. But now, like I was mentioning earlier in this video, us needing to upgrade the kingdoms, that's our main priority, and because of that, we will need to go Dragon Armor to be able to get those additional gold from PvP and just everything that we do. And as I mentioned in the previous video, but in case none of you have seen it, to be able to activate this armor, all you go is go under Hero, go under Armor, and then switch over to wherever your armor is, and then click Place. We can also change our appearance. Doesn't matter if you happen to be wearing it, but now we're wearing our normal uniform that I normally wear in my main account. And there we go. And how do we still have keys left? Oh, because we ended up clicking a task. Oh, we got Tyree. You will never need to use him. Okay. Oh, Dark Master, though, I probably should have mentioned something about. Dark Master at this low of a level range actually is usable. I personally don't bother with him, but he has a static 9 damage on his ability. And at level 1 and level 5, at those very low level ranges, when you don't have any souls at all, he can be somewhat useful. And speaking about useful, let's go over anything useful here. Dragonet does 1 to 5 random stats effects. It's a dragon that isn't used much in late game. Early on in the game is quite potent, because these stats effects generally do more damage than what it even does in damage, and it's only an 8 mana cost. As far as any troop in the game, surprisingly, Dragonet can place the most stats effects out of anything that currently exists, and is generally good if you're trying to get a wide range of different disabilities onto your enemy. Maybe you need a silence, a stun, you might not know what you need in a particular battle, maybe you don't want to scout or something like that. Dragonet is pretty versatile in that, also really good in early game all dragon teams. Owlbear, very, very, very early on in the game, like under level 50, which we currently still are, can be useful mainly because it has a -2 attack. And particularly on the Shegra fight, if we would have gotten this, that would have been pretty good. There's still another Shegra fight that we might need to do that we might use him on. But he does a mild amount of damage plus an attack reduction. Not really anything too spectacular, but at this low range, we might be able to use it. Everything else, pretty much useless. So we'll just move on. So now that all that is done with, we got our armor, we got all of that, I guess we'll go show some PvP battle. One with Tesla and one with the team I've been using lately. It is a pretty standard early game deck that I would highly advise most of you to use. I believe every single time I have ever made a new account, I have made something very similar to this. And it is the Deep Boar Rock Spirit Ranger combo. The reason why this is so potent is Deep Boar's board control stays consistent regardless of its level, and it destroys a column. Basically how you do this is you either aim it all the way to the right or all the way to the left, depending on which one has less browns. Then it creates a bunch of browns. The reason why you hit it all the way to the left or right column is because this will give it the best chance of gaining an extra turn. And out of basically any gem spawner in the game, Deep Boar actually has one of the highest chances of hitting, mainly because his ability technically makes the board smaller. Even though he only has a 9 gem spawn, he makes it a whole column smaller, so it's a lot easier to be able to hit his ability. Rock Spirit has a ridiculously great boost ratio. He deals split damage to all enemies, destroys a column in a row, so kind of like a Soothsayer. He's going to be gaining quite a bit of his mana back. And on top of that, it's boosted by brown gems, and as I mentioned, Deep Boar creates a bunch of brown gems, so you can easily get like 6 or 7 browns hits. Let's even just say 5. That's 20 damage right there. Combine that with his low amount of leveling he has right now, we just got ourselves 30 damage in a single shot, and that is quite potent as early in the game. As you can see with our durability, that's basically enough just to one-shot this troop, though it is split across the enemies. Do keep that in mind. And other than that, we also have the Ranger. Ranger don't even need any leveling on to really make this work. He's only level 12 right now, but he deals damage to an enemy and then additional split damage based on a increased boost ratio. So you get that single target poke, so you'll go throw that down, but then you get this gigantic split, and assuming that the enemy has 4 troops still alive, which will be most of the instances. That's 16 damage right there. If we go and add everything up, that is 15 plus 16. That is 31 damage, so a similar damage to the Rock Spirit. They're both very, very potent early game troops. I only have the Elder Bow up front just because I don't really have anything else to currently use with it. So let's just go show this in a battle and see if we can go use our new Tesla. Tesla is the second legend we have obtained. We did end up getting a Vinoxia earlier. Maybe we should go throw Vinoxia and Tesla together. Vinoxia isn't really that useful though. It is one of the worst legends currently in the game. But Tesla, not so much. Tesla is very, very, very strong. Arguably the best true damage option in the game, though it might be somewhat lackluster earlier on in the game, mainly because it doesn't have as much to boost on. We'll go see. I actually have never bothered using her before this early on, so we'll get to see what exactly she can do. I feel like this team for now will be better until we hit just a little bit later, because no one has like any armor value right now. I believe her boost ratio is a 4-to-1 based on all armor in the game, and if we're up against like 16 armor, that's barely going to do anything, but we'll see what happens. So right here, of course, as I mentioned with the Rock Spirit, we can boost based on every single brown we hit. I do see those browns over there. We'll just move that real quick, see if we can get a couple more kind of here. We can hit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Can we hit more than that? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There we go, 8. So on a 4 times boost ratio, that will be 32 damage. I'll take it. And as you can see, that alone is nearly team wipe. We get all of our mana back. And let's pretend we didn't. We'll just throw the Ranger down. Boom, we kill it just with a single shot, and then we had to split damage on top of that. It is an extremely, extremely potent early game team. Rock Spirit Ranger combo, definitely very, very highly advised if you can happen to get it yourself. You'll probably notice a lot of people also using it just because it's such a potent combo. Let's see if we can actually beat a Mare. We see that he had Rock Spirit, not quite sure what else he's using. Okay, so he's using kind of a different variant of what we're doing basically, in a way. So let's try and counter that out. Really bad board though. Got to take a little bit of mana, see what he does. Gives us some skulls, perfectly fine with that. Our hero does very little damage. We can get hero classes. I will be going over that some more in the future. Haven't really had a need to get one. I deliberately didn't do it the previous Let's Play, but this series I probably will be getting it. The main reason I haven't gotten one yet is there really isn't a point in getting multiple of them, and I was just trying to figure out which one I'd actually want to go on this account. I'm probably going to be going Sorcerer class. It's probably going to be a get the Necromancer class, get Creeping Death Weapon, and then go over to Sorcerer class. The reason I want to go for Sorcerer class is mainly because the Sorcerer class has the best potential first trait, or it literally has the best first trait of any hero class currently in the game. So for people like myself on this account who don't have as many resources and who don't want to bother going out of their way to farm resources, the only trait you technically need on a Sorcerer class is the first trait, whereas every other class basically needs every single trait that they have. The trait that the Sorcerer class gets on his first trait is a Magic Link, and out of every single class that's currently in the game, it is currently the best first trait that you can get on any troop. I haven't really gone over traits that much, mainly because in early game you don't really see them, but there are things that you use their trait stones for that just give you additional benefits to troops. Early on in the game, they're almost irrelevant. Later on in the game, it's pretty much mandatory to synergize around them, just simply because everyone will have them unlocked. So right here, we're actually going to gamble, see if we can get an extra turn off of that. We didn't get it, but we did get the mana that we needed. So right here, we're going to go do our Rock Spirit just to make sure he doesn't get much value out of it. Of course, we'll go for wherever there's most, and we'll get the 5 right there. And as you can see, that is just a ridiculously great amount of damage for this early in the game. And both those two troops, definitely really nice to have. You might not have the Rock Spirit because it is an ultra rare. Ranger, pretty much everyone ends up getting access to though, which is kind of nice. So, we don't have an additional troop slot to put it in, but let's go overwrite this first one that we had. Our very first team that we ever bothered using. Let me see, what did I put under PvP testing? Let me actually go overwrite this one, because this one isn't that useful. That was when we were kind of in a mid-range with almost nothing. But let's go do something out of Tesla. We have almost no souls to throw in it right now, but we did get a Tesla. Since we can, let's go throw Vinoxia in. It does work color-wise, and they're both true damage. So now we need a tank in front of them. So for budget purposes, the best tank you could ever really use is your hero, if you don't want to bother wasting souls on something else. So we'll go probably just put a random hero up front. If we could put a true damage, yes, we do have true damage. We can go with that right there. And now the only thing we need is something with an okay armor. We could try putting an armor buffer onto the team. I don't believe we currently have any. I'm almost leaning towards just going a Valkyrie at this point to be able to feed us those souls. So let's go do just that. We did end up getting her. I did mention her. So let's go put a Valkyrie in. and go give leveling as we might see fit. So let's go change the banner. Of course, now we have access to every banner that currently exists within the game, and because of this we can go the +2 red, +1 yellow, -1 brown banner, which we got from Dragon Claw. This will -1 brown, which as you can see we don't actually use in our team, so we're not going to gain any negative effect from that, meaning all we're getting is the benefits, which are the +2 red and the +1 yellow that will help us get what we need. Ideally we'd have Valkyrie not blocked. You know what, let's actually go switch our weapon into something that won't be blocking. So let's go as much, it's going to be basically useless. I'm not really going to ever bother. Oops, what am I doing? Go apply that, get that out. Let's just go put any weird brown weapon in. Even if it's 100% useless, we don't really need to bother with it, so we're just going to put in this mace, a giant's mace right there. And even though we're basically not going to be using our hero, we're going to be using him as a tank, and the main thing that did for us now is he will not be blocking our Valkyrie, so we can go straight into the Valkyrie, into the Tesla. So, what Tesla specifically does, deal 8 true damage randomly split amongst enemies, boosted by ally and enemy armor. So basically, it does the 8 true damage, and then it calculates the total armor in the entire game, all your allies plus all your enemies, 4-to-1 boost ratio based on that, and then it will just do that much damage. So let's say that there's 20 armor in play, that would be 5 true damage, and so on and so forth. Obviously, there'd most likely be more than that, but let's go see. We have like no leveling on them right now. Let's see if we can take out our 1 trophy and see what we have here. I'll probably leave it unleveled for now because I don't believe I'm actually going to be using much Tesla till a bit later. Same as Venoxia. Venoxia we're never really going to have much of use for, unfortunately, until it eventually gets buffed. In its current state, it's actually quite a useless troop. Wow, we just got a map off of that. That was a absolutely insane cascade right there. I'll take it. I'll take it. So let's get rid of this green right here. That'll give us a Tesla. That also gives us Venoxia, which is quite useful because we can throw that first and then throw down our other ability. I'm actually deliberately going to keep those blues there out of the slight chance that it might end up extra turning over there. It doesn't, but it had the chance. We're just going to move that over, try getting a little bit more Valkyrie mana. That's pretty important to keep casting her down, get a little bit more souls, and just to be able to work around with. And as you can see, the Tesla just completely wipes it out. And instead of doing physical damage like what we were doing before, we now deal true damage. And as you can see, we got our level up. And let's go and grab one more little thing. And one thing I didn't mention, which is something I will be focusing on for the next video that we'll end up doing for this. What should you be doing as far as quest lines? I didn't really mention quest lines much. Quest lines, you do really want to limit yourself early on in the game. There are a few quest lines that have extremely good value. I'll probably mention this again at the beginning of tomorrow's video too. But my priority that I'm going to be doing is going to Blighted Lands and then going to Drifting Sands. The reason for this is Blighted Lands unlocks the Soul Forge, and Drifting Sands unlocks the ability to do dungeons. And both of these you won't want to unlock. So Soul Forge so that you can start passively leveling it without spending any resources. And the Drifting Sands because you're going to be able to unlock dungeons, and dungeons allows you to do daily activities that will, or basically little dungeon boss battles that will allow you to accumulate some resources that are used within the Soul Forge, and we'll be able to accumulate some more troops and just resources in general from doing that. So both are pretty useful to unlock first. Some other noteworthy things you might have heard me mention a few times now is Zolkiri. One other thing to note about Zolkiri this week is the fact that we get oh, that reminds me, we need to go get the bonus glory thing. Asha, one slight tangent, make sure to get this if you haven't already. Whenever there is a +4 glory week, or really whenever there is a troop that costs 400 glory that gives 2 arcanes, those are really good value. But as you can see over in the events, I forgot to mention this, whenever you see an event that says +5 glory, target it like crazy. It gives you a excessively large amount of glory, particularly if it says use a troop in PvP for 5 glory. That's the most glory you can ever gain in this game. And you basically just spam your 1 trophy over and over again by using whatever troop it said, which is Asha this week, and you'll just flood yourself in as much glory as you'll ever need. Well, maybe not as much as you ever need, but it's a really effective way, actually the most effective way of farming glory. And I can't help myself, gotta open some keys since we got them. Nothing useful, and let me guess, nothing useful? Actually, there's almost nothing else that we can even get in gold keys these days that are useful. There's dragon eggs. Very occasionally you can use them on all dragon team, not really too relevant. Makes a little baby dragon. That can then form into another dragon. But yeah, under the events this week, Dragon Horde, it is really good value for us to go throw event keys, to throw down, well, event keys as well, but it's really good value for us to throw down treasure maps because we gain additional rewards on this particular week of doing treasure maps. As I mentioned, treasure map is a really good mini game to be able to accumulate resources passively without ever needing to worry about. I think this might be our first map we're ever doing on this account. But it's a really, really good way to gain resources without actually leveling your account. If you're ever like struggling like crazy and feel like absolutely everything is destroying you in PvP and quests and everything else, this is the easiest way to basically come back from being destroyed, because you're going to gain a lot of resources without gaining any levels. And as I mentioned, gaining levels in this game, at least early on in the game, can be somewhat of a negative thing, mainly because it makes the game a bit harder the more levels you gain. And the thing about treasure hunt minigame is it gives 0 EXP, meaning you could potentially stay here as long as you want, assuming you have the maps for it, and just keep farming up as much resources as you want until you feel like you will be able to win in PvP and within quests and everything like that. So it's a great way, kind of just like an in-between kind of thing, just to kind of relax between the battles, and you get to accumulate quite a bit of resources. And as I mentioned, on any given week where you gain additional resources based on the event, which is this current week, it is quite good value to actually throw these down, as you will be able to accumulate quite a bit more than what you normally would be able to. And as you can see, we just gain all of our resources and some trait stones, all of our other stuff, and just from doing that we end up gaining 14 glory, the 3 event gems things for this event, 804 gold, 54 souls, 2 trait stones, and it is possible to gain gems if you get green or higher. Each one of those have chance of gems, and if you go red or higher, you can even accumulate keys from this method. Generally, I don't really bother going much higher than the green chest though, mainly because I don't really have much need to go for those keys, as it takes quite a bit of time relative to how little of a reward you'll get. But yeah, as far as kingdoms to do, kingdoms, Blighted Lands, Drifting Sands, highest priority. If you need maps, Zolkari, because it gives you the troop Tyree. Tyree is this thing, if you guys have no clue what I've been mentioning. It is this troop. Most of you may already know it if you've been going through quest lines, as is pretty early there. But Tyree, it destroys 5 gems it destroys gems based on its color. I believe you need to have a level 11 Tyree if you have 0 magic kingdoms in order for her to destroy 8 gems. It is really important to get her to that point before you ever really use her. The main reason for this is she has 8 mana, so if she can destroy 8 gems, you can use it on green or purple for her to accumulate all of her mana back. Really important. Using her prior to that point is pretty much pointless. She also gains 5 gold that is static automatically, and she also, the main reason anyone uses her is she has a 20% chance to also gain a treasure map, so you could essentially accumulate all the maps you would ever need. Also, if you happen to use her in a team, she increases the map cap from 10, which is the normal cap, to 20, allowing you to gain pretty much as much maps you'll ever be able to gain within a battle, because realistically you don't really ever even go above 10 if you're trying to do as many as you can within a battle. But yes, as I mentioned, she can farm over 50, over 60 maps per hour with some later teams like Green Seer, Giant Spider, Double Tyree. If you happen to have all of that by any chance, you could farm upwards of 100 maps per hour, basically getting all the maps you ever need in a couple hours. So it's really quick. She's very, very powerful, and you'll never need to worry about maps again if you get her, and you get her from completing out Zolkari. Other kingdoms to mention is if you complete out Adana and then complete out Kazel, there is a weapon called War and Peace that you'll end up getting after you finish out the bonus quest line under Kazel. This is pretty important as it's one of the easiest to obtain full AoE weapons that hit all enemies, and is quite a potent one to use within the context of Arena, as well as just in general in PvP, as it does give 2 attack to all allies every single time you cast it, which just early on in the game is actually a pretty decent boost. Other than that, the line that I'm probably going to be going, like I mentioned, Blighted Lands and Drifting Sands. But as far as my hero class, you can see we still have no class. The 2 kingdoms I'm probably going to go for this is Kedar and Kerkroth. Kedar, as I mentioned earlier, gives the Necromancer class. The reason I want the Necromancer class, actually I don't think I can show it because I don't have it, but the reason I want to get the Necromancer class is because it gives the weapon of Creeping Death. This hits all enemies and places 2 death marks onto the enemy team, which has a 10% chance per turn to instantly kill them. The main thing I want from this is it's similar to that of the War and Peace, in that it's a really, really strong full AoE weapon. So that's the reason I want to go for that. And the reason I want to go for Kerkroth is it's basically the hero class that synergizes with it, because we'll be able to get a +1 purple off of the class that we end up getting from there, and we'll basically be using that most likely as our main hero class on this account. There are plenty other ones. I don't know the full list. I have done videos on it in the past, but a couple kingdoms that give hero classes are Kedar, Forest of Thorns, Kerkroth, Mist of Scales, Divinian Fields, Broken Spire, Adana, Whitehelm, Stormheim, Sword's Edge, and I Oh, and McGrim Woods. And there might be a few other ones that I missed, but that's a good majority of them. If you're wondering where some of these are, you can just go over here, click on one of them, and it tells you unlock this class by doing training quests available in Divinian Fields. And you can just look up all of them that way if you wanted to. Oh, and Golvania. But yeah, you can just, like, let's say you want a night class, like Sorcerer class, you can see this is one of them that I was going for. You can see, Kakarot is where you get it from. So you can find them all that way as well. So I think I did mention all of them. Sweet, I didn't end up missing any, I think. Anyways, that'll wrap it up for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. If there's anything in particular that you want me to go over as far as early game content in these, that is what these are made for, to basically be a early game guide as we progress through this account. So if you have anything in specific that you want me to cover, definitely feel free to leave it in the comment section below. Anyways, hope you all enjoyed. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a wonderful day. Best of luck playing your accounts free to play. It is possible, and it is a little bit hard though. It's mainly the early grind that is the hardest thing to get past. Like these initial levels that we're at are probably the hardest. Once we get up to the higher levels, there isn't much a difference between the early game accounts and the people that have spent thousands of dollars on the game. They basically look like the exact same account. Anyways, guys, best of luck with everything. See y'all later, and goodbye.